All right, so let's take a look at market data from October that was just released. It always comes out first week of the month after the previous month, so we really only have access to look at October's data instead of November's at this point. But to do so in a manner, what I like to do is look at really two sets of data. One would be single family homes in Monroe County. And that's what we're looking at right here in this set of data. Mainly for most of us, that's where we butter our bread, right? Of just single family homes in Monroe County, Rochester and the surrounding area. But I also have this next set here is the six county radius and all property types selected. So to go over things, somewhat quickly, but line by line, we're seeing still increasing pricing in our market, right? So an almost 9% increase in these single family homes in Monroe County compared to October of 2024. So we still got a really, healthy amount of appreciation going on year over year. I pay less attention to the month over month increases because a lot of times, most times, there'll be some sort of seasonal swing in play. And certainly September to October, you have some level of seasonality to it. But also keep in mind that's kind of coming from pending sales that started in, say August, early September, type of dynamic. So we're expect to see these numbers go down in terms of the price gains month over month, but it'll be interesting just to see, okay, is November and December the same level of price increases compared to the year before, just emphasizing a really strongly appreciating market still. Closed sales wise, a little bit of an uptick from the year before, not much, to almost 3%. Down from the month prior by double digits. But that makes sense. We were kind of tracking that a couple months ago to where the inventory levels that and the changes to it. Days on market went up one day, 7 to 8 days. The summary point to all this data is going to be still a strong seller's market, extremely strong seller's market. And anytime you're single digit days on market, that's really a key indicator to that. My biggest takeaway from this data, or one of them, is this list to sales price ratio. And if you look at this chart here, you really see the seasonality playing out, right? And if we go back to last October, we had, just you have seasonal runs with the peak of the market, right? And then it picks back up in March and April and May. It was where the peak of where we were at this year to where 121%, almost 122% was the list to sales price ratio. Now we're back down to 113. I I point to seasonality mainly for this dynamic. Okay, and just it's the effects of seasonality are more or less like clockwork in our market, in most markets, and this is one of them. We're going to have more extreme conditions in the spring. I'll go as far as to bet that being the case for next spring as well. Like, I'm happy to put my foot in my mouth here, but I'd be willing to bet that come next spring, come March and April next spring, we're going to see, similar crazy dynamics to what we saw in the market of this past spring and the past spring before it, so on and so forth. So right now we've got what I'll call a combination effect of both seasonality causing this downward pressure to how extreme the bidding wars, so to speak, are playing out and what these homes are selling for in relation to their list price. But also, I think there's a degree of the strategies that are in play for listings with sellers and agents, right? And you're seeing more of the transparent pricing type of list strategy play out. And if something gets its list price, then it would sell for 100% list to sale price, right? So as we see more of these listings come on the market that are priced like that, that may lead to, maybe we don't get to 120% next year in the spring in this category. Who knows? Too predictive on my end at that point to make it be a useful conversation. But a combination of seasonality is a big takeaway from this discussion. Plus, we've got revised strategies with a lot of sellers going more of a transparent pricing strategy, or just not holding out for bidding wars, knowing that the market doesn't really. Um, it's not to say it doesn't work, right? But it's just a little more risk to it. On the inventory side, like new listings, a little bit of a bump compared to last year, and down from the month prior. I really like to look at the active inventory numbers because that's an indicator of, what is left over, right? Like what's not selling. If all of these newly listed homes weren't selling, that would be a problem, but they are, and they're selling, that level of inventory is actually down from what it was last year. So we're still just in this extremely strong sellers market in Monroe County. And that's really especially, apparent to this data point of month supply of inventory. Understand what this is, month supply of inventory. That means that if not a single home was listed after today, it would take, in this case, 0.9 of a month, less than 1 month, to sell all the inventory that's existing. Now, to give you a sense of where this number should be, if it were a balanced market, then it would take 4 to 6 months to sell all the inventory. So this is a really, beat this to death every month when I do this review, but this is a really just like key indicator of how strong the seller's market that we're in is. Now, before I move on to the 6 county data, or 6 county radius data, I want you to be thinking of, not just like understanding this information and why, right? And like, some of the seasonality effects and the strategy the effects that I've talked about so far. But I really want you to think of what's the marketing concept that you can use as a result of understanding this information, right? And what is it that you can pull from and then go out and outbound market to your database, to your social media profiles, etc., in order to really show that you're the expert, right? If you're the one that's presenting this type of data to the marketplace, that there's a certain level of like, that's bold. People appreciate that. They're gonna respect you more. You're showing that you're active, right? So really, any information you get from me or anywhere should be, not just for the sake of learning and, perfecting your craft or developing skills or anything like that, but more so to where it's what strategy does it inform for you? Right? What's the lead generation strategy or the marketing strategy that you can pull from what it is that you're learning or what you're consuming and get into action with? And I think this monthly data is really a key aspect to focus on, in the sense that you got, at minimum one marketing piece per month that you can use from this, but really more if you want to focus on. So I'll plant that seed before, moving on to the, greater Rochester area in full. And this is the 6 county radius around, 5 counties around Monroe County, I should say. So 6, including Monroe. But then I've selected all the property types here. So this is really just a full picture of the entire marketplace locally for our MLS in our region outside of getting over to Buffalo and east to Syracuse. So, and really similar picture. You got an increase in pricing, a little smaller at 5%. Still really low days on the market, even though it has climbed. It's interesting. It was at 13 in December, but it's up from 8 to 9. So it's 12%. It seems extreme, but it's really only one day. Again, same seasonal roller coaster or strategy, change that have led to a lower list to sales price ratio. And again, not enough inventory out there. So that's the data for all of Rochester from October. I'll tie in a couple things I just wanted to reference. One, this chart here shows nationally. These are all going to be national charts from here, but um, the difference in inventory level nationally in 2025, one compared to pre-COVID, where we were at in 2019. And you can see that we're getting close, but still, a ways off. But also just like, look at the climb that we've had to make to get to here, right? And just how grim it was coming off of 2022 and, kind of increased incrementally each year since. So, nationally, they've got more of a boost than in new inventory this year, especially as you can see, and really especially the last 2 years, right? Because like this line here being 23, I believe, maybe it's 22. It's got to be 23, and then going to 24, and then 25. They're climbing, but still nowhere near what were also low levels pre-pandemic. So for what that's worth there. And then also to describe in relation to active inventory, just this seasonal decline that I mentioned for our data is applying nationally as well, where it's, back in May, 32% more active listings were on the market. And that's dropped to 17% in September at a national level. Wanted to show a couple things here. One, as a reminder, Mortgage Bankers Association predicted rates to not even hit 6% by the end of 2027. So that revision on their end where, hey, we were hoping to get into the high fives at some point here. They're saying, hold the phone. You're going to be sitting above 6 for the next 2 years at least is their take on things. Are they right? Who knows? Only time will tell. What does this mean? Like, if you've got buyers who are holding out or sellers who are holding out for drastically lower interest rates, 4%, for example, is again, keep in mind, we're not that far off from when, other people, or I'm sorry, we're not that far off from a time when a lot of people were experiencing just historically low rates in the threes and below. So it's not like it's unheard of to where, anybody would remember having that low of a rate. And more so, it's a matter of like people wanting to get back there. And there's probably a lot of, undue promises that would make sense to have that be a thing, right? To be able to say to anybody right now, hey, we're going to get back to 4% rates, just hang on. Like, not great advice, not great strategy as a buyer. So if you have somebody that's saying that, like, listen, sounds weird to say, hey, keep this in your back pocket and bust it out when you're in conversation, but I would, not literally in my back pocket, but like, having this chart saved somewhere on your phone and your drive, whatever, to be able to reference, like, oh, listen, I don't want to argue with you, but let me show you what the Mortgage Bankers Association thinks rates are going to do. They're more experts than I am. Also want to show home appreciation predictions, and this is also national. And again, keep in mind, Q4 of 2025, so where we're at right now, nationally prices are only gaining at 1%. And I just showed you where we're at 8% in Monroe County. Right. So like the national picture has adjusted when it comes to price growth, and we really haven't to this level yet. So my point is that, the bubble bursting, so to speak, in real estate nationally looks like Q3 of 2026 till quarter 3 of 2027, a year where there'll be slightly negative price growth national, or price decline, I should say, nationally. My thing is, like, if this were just to mirror what the current appreciation is in our market and the same things were to happen, like, we wouldn't hit the negatives. Maybe our price growth slows down to 1 or 2% compared to 8 or double digits. But we're not looking at a time for this national prediction where, because you see it just starts to rebound at the end of 2027 and isn't like a consistent gradual decline to where anybody's predicting that nationally home prices are going to come down 10% anytime soon. To me, it really bodes well for us because we're just looking at stability in price growth and kind of getting back to the market that we've always been in the sense of, like, we're just used to not double digit gains in pricing. It's always been just Rochester kind of appreciates at a 1-2% or in line with inflation type of marketplace up till recently. It's only been recently that we've had this much gain. So price stability would be a good thing overall, if you ask me. Don't get me wrong, if you're sitting on real estate, like, yeah, you want it to go up as much as possible leading up to the time when you have to sell it, right? But, like, overall, to, like, just keep both sides of it going, buyers and sellers, in a fair market for each, like, it's not a bad thing if we're just slowly gaining in price appreciation versus massive gains like we've seen that really make it tough to be competitive as a buyer, or just have affordability as a buyer, especially combined with higher interest rates. Show you this. This is the prediction for, again, nationally, but the total number of homes that will sell in the next what do we got, 3 years. And point I want to make here is that we were coming off it was just a really euphoric time in real estate industry history back in 2020, 2021, when 6 million homes were selling compared to the lower 4 million range that we've seen since 2022. And we're not expected to get back to that 6 million number, because this runs through 2028 and they're not even predicting 5s with existing homes. And 2, to also point out, this doesn't translate exactly, but this kind of got me thinking, and I did some research. If we were to compare 4 million homes sold to 6 million homes sold in that peak of just real estate history, that level, so to speak, that's a difference of 2 million homes sold, obviously. I looked up, there's 3,100 and change. I think it was 3,143 number of counties in the country. 2 million homes divided by 3,100 counties is another 600 more homes sold in each county annually. And I look at that and I say 50 more homes sold per month in our area. Again, it's not direct correlation because there's, each county will be different, right? But my point is, like, doesn't change anything for any individual real estate agent here in Rochester. The differences between 4 million homes selling at the bottom of the barrel compared to 6 million homes selling at the top level. What changes when those types of dynamics happen is the level of demand to create it. And that's what we had happen in 2020, 2021 was the demand was just easy, for lack of a better way of thinking about it from a real estate agent perspective, because rates were so low and there was all this free money that came out from COVID, and people had an itch to get out into the home that they wanted to get out in, or out from their apartment that they were locked in and into their own home, or out from their small home and into a bigger house, etc. And it just like spurred an obnoxious level of demand. Like the context was back then that like the real estate agents would literally say like, I don't need another buyer. I got too many. The reason they would say that is because it was tough to get business done with buyers because there was so much demand and so much competition. But my point is that the market changing back to more euphoric conditions doesn't necessarily mean anything for you as a real estate agent. Frankly, could make it harder because, you know, yeah, you've got all the buyers, or you've got an easier time getting buyer leads and buyer clients, but you have a harder time getting their offers accepted. Versus the way that this business is just supposed to go, and you got to go out and hunt for that demand and the supply. But this is normal real estate conditions where it's like, it's not just a line outside your door of people, looking to purchase. You have to go find them. And we're in that market right now. We have been. And I'm just showing you this and having this conversation and tell you like it's going to remain the same. We don't have, I doubt 2029's prediction would be, 6 million based on this trend, right? Like we're just incrementally increasing little by little as the years go on. Like we're in it for the long haul. And you can embrace that to and hear it to say, okay, oh crap, or all right, what's my formula? How do I go be successful with this? And this topic on just, here's a blog from Bigger Pockets, but just the differences between the fall and spring markets, right? And objection handling from it. Like you've got it's all competition based really, right? It's on both sides, sellers and buyers. Like if you're a buyer in the market today, you have significantly less competition than a buyer in the market in the spring. And again, you're going to be paying 121% of the list price in May compared to 113% now. Now, I don't want you to use that literally, but that's just how to relate to, what this opportunity is. Like the data right now shows that on average, homes sell for 113% of their list price compared to 121 in the springtime for the past year. What would you think is a better time to buy, Mr. Buyer? Fairly obvious. Same thing as a seller in the sense of like, it gets a little more dicey when you're having this objection handling seasonality conversation with sellers, right? Because yeah, their home may sell for more in the spring, just based on the intensity of the spring market. But we don't have predictions for pricing to come down. And we can correlate a certain level of logic to you're going to be also competing against more sellers as a seller in the springtime. So right now, when there's still, we're still proving that there's ready, willing, and able serious buyers out there this time of year. This really applies to me for a seller that doesn't have a high-end product, right? Or a really good product to where it's like, yeah, no problem. You got a 10 out of 10 house? Sure. Capitalize on the spring market. If you don't, like this could really be it because if you got a 6 out of 10 home that you're selling and you're in the spring going against a bunch of nicer homes and more options for buyers to choose from, that could really be worse than selling now where there's just not a lot of anything for buyers to choose from. It's kind of a weird there's a lot of like duality to the messaging that you can create from this data this month in the sense of like hey, for a seller it's still a strong time, still a great market for sellers, still extreme for sellers, great time to sell if you need to, if you're willing to. And for a buyer, like it's a great time to buy comparatively speaking till waiting to the spring, because like we can only assume the competition is going to pick up again in the spring, and we've got this more downward pressure of less competition that can yield some wins or some potentially better deals for buyers.